Press Conference, and really the purpose of it is simply to thank everyone that participated in the internal elections that was concluded on Sunday, the 22nd of June. Now that the internal elections is over, I am, certainly making a call to everyone for us to focus as a party on the rebuilding. There are a lot of lessons that we have learned following the general elections of the 20th of April. We understand that we are in opposition, and being in opposition, it means that, members of the party, some have expressed, of course, their concerns about, the fact that why we lost, how would we, within the shortest possible time, focus on preparing ourselves as an opposition to return to government. The important thing is to do some rebuilding, do some healing, going to the respective constituencies, as I indicated over the last month or so, listening a little more to the membership, and letting them know in no uncertain terms that it would not be business as usual, that the executive members would be expected to go to constituencies, present to the General Council their programs for the next 2 years, so that the membership would be aware exactly as to what are their plans and programs to take the party forward. So I want to thank each and every member of the One PNM team. I'm happy that we were successful. Just over 7,000 persons participated in the elections. It was a keenly contested election. It's the first time in the history of the People's National Movement that so many persons offer themselves to participate in the internal elections, and that was really a very positive step for the party. So let me thank each and every one, each and every member, each and every candidate that offered themselves. We were very pleased to see the interest, and let me also thank all those who had the confidence to give the support to the One PNM team, to now allow us to get down to work and work in the interest of the People's National Movement. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the media, and thank you for joining us at Balizé House. As you're aware, the Election Supervisory Committee did provide the results of the recently concluded elections, and I will just announce the names of the persons who have been elected to the various positions that were contested on Sunday. For the position of Chairman, MP Marvin Gonzalez; Vice Chairman, Dr. Amory Brown; Lady Vice Chairman, Dr. Nyan Gadsby Dolly; General Secretary, Foster Cummings; Assistant General Secretary, Patricia Alexis; Treasurer, Nal Ramsing; Education Officer, Dr. Jelani Reed; Public Relations Officer, Senator Faris Alwari; Social Media Officer, Simon Dinobrega MP; Elections Officer, Indar Parasram; Field Officer, Curtis Shade; Welfare Officer, Maxine Richards; Youth Officer, Karim Marcel MP; Operations Officer, Irene Hines; Labor Relations Officer, Kenneth De Raj. You would be aware that the position of political leader was uncontested, and therefore the political leader-elect is the Honorable Penelope Beckles. I'll move on now to the special convention, which is scheduled for this Sunday at the Lions Cultural Center. Registration for the convention starts at 12 noon, and the convention will be called to order at 1:30 p.m. The main agenda item for the convention is the feature address by the political leader and the installation of officers, including the political leader and the national executive that I just called out to you. The convention will comprise all members of the General Council and all delegates to the annual convention, and in addition will involve invited guests and other party members and supporters. The political leader may also take the opportunity to appoint deputy political leaders at this convention. Thank you.
Good morning. I think it is necessary to deal with some issues that I have seen come up in the public domain, particularly in the mainstream media. Now, naturally, when persons participate in an election, especially an election such as this, where there is a lot at stake, because from my experience, I've seen it in 1991, I've seen it in 2001, and I've seen it in 2015. The PNM is so resilient that we are not in opposition for very long. And in 1991, after 5 years, the PNM came into government. In 2001, after 6 years, the PNM came back in government. And in 2015, the PNM, after 5 years, came back in government again. So it is likely, and in fact, in my opinion, it is inevitable that the PNM will be back in government in 2030. And therefore, there was a lot at stake in this internal election, because those who would be in the leadership of the party would be the ones making the decisions with respect to the party going forward, particularly with respect to screening of candidates, for example. So I realized there was a lot at stake, and a lot of anxiety, and a number of issues were raised, most of which were inaccurate. And I would refer now to a particular letter that came from the unsuccessful candidate for General Secretary, Mr. Boynes was, right? Mr. Roger Boynes, my former colleague, MP Boynes, Minister Boynes. He wrote a letter a couple of days ago complaining about the manner in which the Election Supervisory Committee had handled the management of the election. And in that letter, he made a most astonishing statement, which I know to be inaccurate. He said that, according to the information coming to him, put this in writing, the members of the independent slate, there was a slate calling themselves independents, he was one of them, was ahead in 30 constituencies out of 41. That's entirely incorrect. That is not so. We were looking at the results on the night itself, and there were maybe 5 constituencies, if so many, where some members of the independent slate were ahead. But to say that 30 of 40 constituencies had the independent slate ahead, it's just fantasy. It's unfortunate, but these things happen. So it is clear there's a lot of disappointment, and there were people who thought that they would do very well, and there were people who spent a lot of money on advertising and promotion. But from my knowledge over the last 35 years of looking at PNM internal elections, this election was entirely free and fair. I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before, the so-called independent slate wanted to get copies of the returns of the election in each constituency. The return would give the number of votes that each candidate got, signed by the presiding officer, because this internal election mirrored the EBC procedure. I was a little surprised because it was a lot of infrastructure. When I went to vote, I met about 8 people inside the Maraval Community Center who had been given the responsibility to ensure that the election was done free, fair, and properly. You had an information officer, a queries officer, a presiding officer, a deputy presiding officer, a poll clerk, and so on. And the process was almost identical to the general election. First, they would check to see if your name is on the list. Then they would ask you for ID. Then they would call out your consecutive number in the same way it's done in a general election. Then they give you the ballot, explain how you cast your votes. Then you go into the voting booth, which is hidden from sight of everybody else. Then you come back out and you put your ballot into the box in the same way that is done in a general election. So this election, to me, in fact, I thought it was a bit of overkill in terms of making sure that everything was proper, above board, fair, and that everybody had an equal opportunity to contest and win or lose, as the case may be. So all I'm seeing outside there is just natural disappointment. People thought that they would win. They didn't. It happens. I myself contested an election back in 2011. I contested the post of vice chairman. Ms. Beckles was contesting the post of chairman, and we were not on the political leaders slate at the time. I think Ms. Beckles lost by 3 votes. I lost by 30 votes. We weren't happy about that, but we didn't make a big fuss and song and dance about it. We took our licks and moved on. So I just thought I would put that into the system, that I'm seeing a lot of reportage on this, and I guess it's just the way the media operates. It's bacchanalian for people to be complaining about, irregularities and so on, but there were no significant irregularities that I saw.
Okay, so any questions? Anyone?
I didn't even see a veiled, sorry, come back here. I didn't even see a veiled threat of legal action. What I saw was a complaint. And what happens in these situations, since it mirrors what takes place in other elections, is that you have to look at the will of the voters. Let's say, for example, 1 or 2 votes were miscounted. The margin of victory for everybody on the leader of the opposition slate was well over 1,000. So there's no way any of the minor issues that may have arisen, I'm not saying any did, could have in any way affected the outcome of the election. And they know that. These are experienced people. They're experienced lawyers. They know that they wouldn't stand a chance contesting this legally. So I think that is just kind of it's not even veiled, it's just a hint, but I don't think this could possibly go anywhere, and if it does, it will have no result.
And outside of him, anyone else complains of any irregularities?
Yes, I saw Mr. Farai Masaisai. He was upset as well. Now speaking for myself, he had quite a catchy campaign song. He had a video, he had a big presentation, and therefore he put a lot of effort into it. And he got very few votes. I mean, very, very, very few. I think in all maybe 500 total across the board for all his candidates and so on. So he must be very disappointed. But I don't think he has a leg to stand on.
Okay.
Outside of the expensive campaign, there were a lot of current sitting MPs current sitting MPs that would have also been backing him, possibly, for example. As we're speaking in terms of healing in the party, he being disappointed and the person being disappointed, do you see that affecting the healing process?
Well, let me put it this way. Once there's an election and people lose, of course you have to focus on the healing. But let me just say, even in my own constituency in Arima, I was there, and there are people who came and they were not on the list. Interestingly, there are even some people that came to vote that were not members. People hear there's an election and they show up and you're looking, So it's very interesting sometimes. And then, because I was there at the time, I just asked the question, well, are you a member? No, but, I heard you were going up, Ms. Beckles, and I came to vote for you. So, it's always very interesting. And some people have their card, they have been members for a long time, and there's no follow-up. So one of it really that I focused on before is the modernization of the party. you know, and the truth is we're going to be 70 years next year, but there's room for improvement to make the party, you know, your issues as it relates to how do you access information. That is something we're going to work at. So we are not going to deny that, you know, that some concerns were not genuine. But at the same time, as it relates to whether it would have impacted on the results to the point where there should be something totally different, no, because the margin of victory is that wide. But I want to maintain the point that the healing is important, and that's why I maintain my position of the importance of thanking all of those who participated. As I said, it's the first time we had 50 plus persons participating. So notwithstanding the fact that we were in opposition, it meant that something positive is happening where people have an interest and want to be part of the leadership and as members of the executive. So we'll be making an extra effort to reach out to even the candidates that lost on the 20th, as well as to reach out to those who participated in the process. And we know that it's not the first time the People's National Movement has been in opposition, but it's going to be my duty as the political leader-elect and political leader following Sunday's convention to make an extra effort to recognize, you know, those who have offered themselves. There's room for everyone in the party, and we will be reaching out to them and looking forward to them continuing to work in the interest of the People's National Movement.
Can I just add something, please? I want to make it abundantly clear that all of the people who contested, as far as I am concerned, and I'm sure the leader of the opposition as well, are very valuable members of the PNM. I would not want them to think that their effort was not appreciated. I mean, Chinua Haleen, for example, made a serious effort, just didn't get through. Farai, as I said, had a very interesting campaign. And Paula Gopi-Schoon is a valuable member of the party, as is Donna Cox. So these are all party stalwarts. Roger Boynes was an MP, a very successful MP, and a Minister of Sport. These are all very important, very valuable members of the party, and I expect that as soon as they put over their disappointment, they will join with everybody else to rebuild the PNM and make it the strong, powerful force that it should be and will be.
So let me just give you an example. There's a guy called Iba Steele. Iba contested 4 times. He hasn't been successful, right? But it didn't stop him. So I'm just saying that, you know, if you have lost and you contest again, it must mean that you have, that you believe that the process is credible, right? So, I mean, I contested myself more than once. I mean, I lost in 2014. I ran as the chairman and I lost, right? I also ran, lady vice chairman, and I won. So for Masai Sai, for example, he did run as well on the last occasion. So there are a number of people that participated. Foster himself would have lost on more than several occasions. Mr. Imbert indicate he too lost, so that and whilst you will have concern at times that it may not have been a perfect system, but the fact that we have had a number of those persons who contested even at this time, Andrew Al, for example, he contested before. So there are a number of persons who have contested before and have lost and have still continued to have faith in the process.
I know Senator Cummings touched on it yesterday, giving his reason or his belief with the turnout being 7,100.
Yes.
But I'm wondering,
Sure, for me.
Your view on having, there's over 100,000 eligible voters and the turnout being 7,100 only.
Yeah.
We said it's because we were uncontested, unchallenged for the position, but there were other positions and persons who, there was a lot of chatter about it before, especially General Secretary position.
Yeah.
Actually. So,
yeah, but let's compare.
The seat was safe, but other persons
Yes,
were
yeah, but let's compare the data, right? When in 2014, when I contested, you had almost about 20,000 people. And then in the two others, the last one being 2022, you had just about 9,000. And we had 3 days of voting, right? So 3 days of voting, just 9,000. And then the other one, which I think was 2018, yes. And we had also 9,000. So in truth and in fact, if you look at it, 1 day of voting, and we are in opposition on those previous occasions with Dr. Rowley, and the last 2 occasions, we were in government, right? So I am of the view, yes, you can always talk about what's your membership, but then you always have what you call your active participants. So I am of the view, yes, ideally I would have loved to have a lot more people participating, but when I compare the data, I think that we, you know, as I said, we would like to have more people to having participated, but when I do the comparative analysis, you know, and particularly opposition.
Like you lost members or people are
Well, no,
dissatisfied.
but, well, I mean, listen, if people don't turn out, there's a lot of things you can interpret as to why they didn't come out. Some people may not be happy, a number of things. But if you look at the analysis, I mean, even when you think of the recently concluded general election and you look at the data, I mean, people love to say to you, you have a population of 1 point something million turnout and you only had 50 something +%, so it means, but then, you know, we understand that, you know, a lot of people may be participants. I mean, I even in my own constituency, we did very well, but you talk to other people and a lot of people felt, well, you're already the leader, so, you know, but what it also tells us is we have work to do. Yes?
If I
Yes,
can
you want to say?
add something to that. I want to remind us that this party comes from a history of delegate voting. It was only in 2011 or thereabouts that the party took steps to move from a delegate system of voting to one man, one vote. That was something piloted by our previous political leader, Dr. Rowley, on a motion coming from the Cuba South constituency. And then the party moved to one man, one vote. This party is 70 years old. So that the first one man, one vote election we had, the turnout, as mentioned by the political leader, was around 20,000. And that was, number one, the first such election. Number two, contesting the two major and senior players in the party contesting for political leader, which would be Dr. Rowley and the current political leader, Honorable Penelope Beckles. So it stirred a lot of attention, and we were able to have party members feeling that they must come and make a decision on this matter. By the next election for the party, it settled off to around 9,000 or so. And even in 2018, when the position of political leader was not contested. In 2022. So in 2018 was not. In 2022, although the position of political leader was contested, the turnout still was around 9,000. On this occasion, number one, we recently found ourselves in opposition. Number two, the position of political leader was uncontested, but we still had a very vibrant campaign. And therefore, I do not see, in those circumstances, a turnout of 7,000 votes overall as the way it has been interpreted. Now, of course, we'd like to get more membership participation, but this is the beginning of the rebuilding effort. We as an executive, we are going to accompany the political leader across the country, engaging with party members as part of our rebuilding efforts.
Yes? Anything else? Do you want to go into your thing? Yeah? Okay.